Hi, it's Kevin. I want to talk to you briefly about SUSD Superintendent Scott Menzel. Dr. Menzel's been under a lot of criticism lately, and there are certain members of our community who would like to see a change in leadership. I think that'd be a tremendous mistake. I was having a conversation the other day with Don Henniger, my co-host on the Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale podcast, and we were speculating that many of his detractors have probably never even met Dr. Menzel. They've never had a conversation with him. And if they did, they'd find out what a thoughtful and effective leader he really is. So here's what we're going to do. Dr. Menzel was our guest on our podcast last summer. We're going to take a few portions of that podcast and present them as short individual insights into specific topics. For example, the aggregate expenditure limit. The AEL is a complicated funding mechanism that's unique to Arizona. It affects all school districts, not just Scottsdale. Listen to Dr. Menzel explain what it is and how it affects funding for public education. I think you'll agree that he has a command of the issue, understands the nuances surrounding it, and has a strategy for a permanent solution. This is exactly the kind of leadership we need to have at Scottsdale Unified School District. Take a listen.
Explain a little bit the aggregate expenditure limit issue, which you're also dealing with.
So the aggregate expenditure limit is a unique thing here in Arizona. It was a surprise to me when I came from Michigan. I couldn't believe that in a state constitution we have a cap on what you can spend on public education. Not tied to available resources, but it's tied to a different formula. The AEL was adopted in 1980.
I was going to say it's about like 50 years old.
So the environment in 1980 in Arizona was very different than what we're
Right.
experiencing now.
No kidding.
And when the expenditure limit is approached, and it's a complicated formula based on the number of students, the amount of money, what gets added to the expenditure limit, what's exempted from it. Mm-hmm. So Prop 301, which had been approved by voters some time ago, was specifically exempted from the aggregate expenditure limit. Then, when that expired and the legislature extended 301, but it was no longer part of the voter-approved initiative, that $500 million got calculated as part of the AEL. So we had a perfect storm. COVID resulted in a significant decline in the number of students, and then you add $500 million to the expenditures that had previously been exempted, we exceeded the limit by more than $1 billion.
Wow. Yeah.
And the only way to authorize schools to spend above that limit, we would have been looking at about a 16% cut to our budget if the legislature hadn't acted. The only way to avoid that outcome is for 2/3 of the House and Senate to approve suspending that. So we're likely to come up against the aggregate expenditure limit again this coming year. And so in addition to needing them to approve the budget, we need them to address the aggregate expenditure limit.